friends. Welcome to the 10-minute book talk. As you can see, I'm a little excited today because we are talking with the amazing Maddie Dawson, who has written a book that I absolutely adore. I had the joy and the pleasure of getting to read an early copy of this book and writing a quote for it. And I want to tell you what I said because it's all true. Maddie Dawson has a rare ability for crafting quirky, offbeat characters that are also utterly believable. Dawson is at the top of her game with Snap Out of It, a magical, wise, tender, joyously relatable read. From the moment Billie the Heartbreak Bunny stepped onto the page, I felt I'd met a soulmate. There are only a handful of authors whose name on the cover elicits an automatic buy for me. Maddie Dawson is one of them. Maddie, welcome to the 10-minute book talk.
Thank you. And thank you for that lovely quote. It is so wonderful. I read it every day just to, so I can keep going.
Like cut it out and like pin it to your blouse like a gold first grader with a gold star, right?
I think so. I may get it embroidered, the whole thing.
I love that.
A pillow. You need an embroidered pillow.
I'm
that
trying
says that.
to show it to my family, see?
See?
Or this best-selling author thinks this of my books.
Marie loves me.
I do love you. So I have been really looking forward to this interview. I could just go on and on about your book, but I think that's bad television. So, so Maddie, tell us a little about your wonderful book, Snap Out of It.
All right. Well, it's the story, as you said, of Billie the Heartbreak Bunny, and she is 60 years old, which is totally controversial to write about an old person like that, but I wanted her to be 60 because she wakes up on her 60th birthday and she hears from her ex-husband. She's been married 3 times. She's given up on love. She's given up on romance. She says all those songs we've listened to all since we were teenagers have just poisoned our minds, and we all should be doing things that cause us joy rather than trying to fall in love. So she has invented this business. She got a little drunk with a friend and they invented this business that they named Snap Out of It. And it involved, because they were very drunk, Billie has to dress up like a bunny in a stuffed bunny costume because it's performance art. And she hops into clients' houses and removes the things that they're keeping that hold them in misery, which are all kinds of odd little collections of things, gym socks, and corsages and pictures. As the book went on, I sort of found more and more unusual things that I wanted to add. So that was really lovely. There actually is a book called The Museum of Broken Relationships. Yeah. And it is a book that just tells what people have said, like an iron, please. It was the most fascinating book. And it's just the things that people hold on to. So that was really fun to kind of look up and see what it was.
Well, but I think that leads us into our first question, perhaps. Okay. Katherine,
it does. So I wanted to ask about the inspiration, but what's interesting is, did the inspiration of that book, The Museum of Broken Relations, did that come first? Or did that help? Okay, so what was that kernel that came first that led you to a bunny hopping around?
Heartbreak Bunny.
It was a really interesting thing. 12 years ago now, the New York Times, their modern love column, they had one called Death Bear Will See You Now. And it was a column about a performance artist who for a couple of weekends dressed up in Manhattan, like in a bear costume. And he put up posters and volunteered to go in and help people remove the stuff. And so the column was written by a woman who had him come. And she was sort of reflecting on the things he took away. He put everything in a big sack. And, once it was gone, she really felt that she'd been liberated. For some reason, I cut that column out. It just seemed like the most interesting thing. And then it popped into my head one day when I was cleaning out things. And I went, I want to write about this kind of thing, only it'll be a woman and it'll be a bunny instead of a bear, and she'll do it as a lark, but it turns into something bigger. And in fact, her business goes viral and she goes all over the country doing this. And so it really came from that New York Times column.
I would have loved to have been in the room when you got on the phone with your editor and said, so listen,
there's a bunny.
I know. Well, it's so
not
weird.
named Rosebud.
Yeah, I was telling her about it so sheepishly, like, well, it's kind of a crazy little book. I don't know, and she went, I love it. And she sold it without me sending in the sentence, in the proposal. She kept saying, you need to send it to me. You need to send it to me. And I, wanted to perfect it, wanted to try to soften it a little bit. And when I finally sent it to her, she said, listen, we're buying the book. We already decided at the sales meeting. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well done, you.
Well, I think that's it really shows something that Marie has talked about and that I've noticed in your books as well, that you have very quirky characters, but they're very relatable. And you're bringing out these themes of humanity in a way that I'm not dressing up in a bunny costume, but I can relate to them. And so I'm curious, what is your thought process behind that? How do you take these very quirky characters and very unusual but captivating settings and make them so universally relatable so that we in our lives, our more normal lives, feel like we're there, we're like empathizing with it?
Well, that's so kind of you to say, because I'm not sure it works for everyone. I think that for some people, they go, that might be a bridge too far, this woman dressing up like a Heartbreak Bunny. So in the book, I created her daughter, who's an Instagram influencer, who's totally against her doing this. And that kind of gives her a chance to play against somebody who might be, this is insane what you're doing. And it is sort of insane, but she just kind of doesn't care. I think I love Ann Tyler's books because I feel like her characters, she really can do that with quirky people. And I like writing about people who are a little unusual just because it keeps me more interested. It's easier for me to do than writing about people, the Jane everyone, who those are really hard characters for me to get to come alive on the page. So a quirky one is a little bit easier.
I actually have one of my secret reading rules is that I do not read about characters that have less interesting lives than mine, because I just don't find them to be compelling. And so I totally get it, because you want to write, and when you're writing, you're with someone for a couple of years, these characters, you want them to be very interesting. You want your imagination to be captivated. And then you also want people to be able to relate. And so that's a fine line to figure out. How do you captivate imagination and make them relatable? But I think you've done it. I think you've really done it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's such a great compliment. I really appreciate it.
Well, they're just, I love this book. I love these characters. And you touched on another character. I mean, of course, I loved Billie. There's a big cast of characters who are really well drawn, and all of them are quirky and interesting, each in their own ways. But I want to talk about Louise a little bit, who is an influencer. I have to tell you, there was a moment in which I was like, I'm just going to slap her. If this was my daughter, I would slap her the next week. She was like all the worst things that an influencer could be. And I don't even know that I have a question. Just talk about that a little bit. Like, where did that come from? And then the mother, because you do redeem her, and you find a way to redeem the relationship, because I was just like, I was saying, Billie, snap out of it, get your daughter in line. And she doesn't really she does it in a different way. Anyway, talk about Louise. That's my question.
That's, maybe you guys have this problem too, but do you ever write a character and it is sort of a Louise type, or somebody that you don't really relate to at all? And how do you make them sympathetic for the reader? You're not really loving them as you're writing about them, but I needed the reader to care a little bit about her, and I kept trying to soften her a little bit and make her less. So I had to give her this backstory of being Billie's daughter and the father having left when she was a baby. And Billie was this sort of neurotic mother who wouldn't even go to work. She just had a series of stay-at-home jobs, so that she could just be home and sort of monitoring Louise all the time. So of course it was this messy life. They take in tenants, they have a broken down house. Billie's always just kind of doing whatever job she can. She gives people rides to the airport, so that's kind of her life. And Louise wanted everything to be perfect, she in her rebellion. And so that's how she sort of became an influencer. And then through the book, she comes to I mean, she's humbled by life, as my husband says. He says, he was always talking about people and going, they're HBL, humbled by life, you know? It's
I
like,
like that.
people are so much better when they're humbled by life, right? That's really, really good.
Well, and I think that's when, you touched on some other themes that were really good. We try to craft these perfect lives. And I think Instagram, which we're all on Instagram, and believe me, I am taking the best shots in my home, right? I mean, I am taking, every once in a while, I will take a picture of my totally messy office because it's like, dude, I'm real. I get it.
Right.
Right. But we curate our lives. And then we're judging often as human beings, especially in this internet age, we're judging the inside of our life by the outside of somebody else's, and it's just not real.
True.
True.
That's so
It's
true.
true.
I loved the messiness of the people. I love this book. I could go on and on, but unfortunately, it's a 10-minute book talk. So
It's a book talk.
it's a 10-minute book talk. So I'm going to move us on to our last but extremely important question that we always ask at the 10-minute book talk. Maddie Dawson, what is bringing you joy today?
Well, today is Tuesday, and next Monday, I am starting a book that I've gotten 20,000 words on it, but I am taking myself, this is an experiment for me, because mainly I don't write this way, but I'm taking myself into what I'm calling the writing cave. And I am going to just immerse myself in writing this book for a month. I'm going to try to get an entire first draft in a month. And I know.
I love the idea.
It's
Tell
a
us
great
how it
idea,
goes.
isn't it?
Yeah, tell us
Great
how
idea.
that works.
Please tell us how that
I
works.
will let
When
you
you
know.
come
if
out
it
the
does-
other end, tell us if you survived it and if
I'd
you actually
survive.
did
I
it.
know.
Like,
Well, there's
Should we
this
send
book.
should we send chocolate?
Yeah,
Chocolate
we
and
should.
hopes and prayers, all that. There's this, a book in a month,
Okay.
written by somebody who wrote it for Writer's Digest. And Barbara O'Neill said that this had helped her. I saw that on Facebook, and I thought, okay, because Barbara O'Neill writes wonderful books, so maybe. So
All right.
I've told a bunch of people I'm doing this. Half of them say, you can't do that. Some of those are my family members.
I think you can do it.
You need that
I think
Marie
you do.
pillow. You need
Whether-
another
right.
Marie pillow that says you can do it.
You can do it. You can do it.
Exactly.
Whether you do the whole thing or not,
Yeah.
you'll have more than you would have.
Yeah, I was about to
That's
say,
true.
you'll have a lot.
And I
Yeah.
want
I
to
think-
check back in a month and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key is to not go back, just to move forward, which is hard for me, but I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm excited. We want a book report. We probably should ship like oxygen and chocolate and possibly, I don't know, what kind of gin do you drink?
I was like, a gin too.
I
I
think that
need IVs. It could be an
Okay.
IV. It's good.
Not a gin. That won't help you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, Maddie Dawson, thank you for joining us here at the 10-minute book talk. Maddie, hold up your book one last time. Friends, go out today and get yourself a copy of Snap Out of It by Maddie Dawson. It is a joyous, wise, and wonderful read. You're going to love it. And we'll see you next week, friends, here at the 10-minute book talk for more bookish fun. Thanks.